One of the questions that was sent in for these videos was, what would I recommend as far as fiction goes? And you might expect me to say anything by C.S. Lewis or J.R.R. Tolkien. And of course, I love the novels of those two authors. But I want to suggest some books that are not by Tolkien or Lewis, books that maybe you wouldn't have heard of. I like to read fiction, don't read as much as I would like to read. There are many other things that need to be read and that I also enjoy reading. But every once in a while I come across a novel that I love. You might just keep in mind that when you're thinking about fiction, there's really two different kinds of fiction. There's popular fiction, and those are books by, say, John Grisham, Tom Clancy, those kinds of authors. And then there's literary fiction. Literary fiction tends to be a little more thoughtful, it's a little deeper, a little more sophisticated, it takes a little more work to read, but I think it's better fiction, and where you're actually gonna get something substantial out of it. And so the books that I'm mentioning are mostly in that category. So the first one is a book called The Chosen by Chaim Potok. Potok was a Jewish author, and he writes a book about two Jewish boys in the 1940s Brooklyn. And it's really about a friendship. It's also, to some degree, about father-son relationships, but especially this book is about friendship. And it gives you a window into 20th century Judaism, two different streams of that represented by these two boys. But it really is just a poignant, even a piercing story about this friendship and about the experiences of these two boys and the friendship with one another. It's a wonderful book, highly recommend it. Another book I would recommend is Marilynne Robinson's book, Home. And this is actually the second in a trilogy, so you'd probably want to start with the first book in the trilogy called Gilead. This is the second book, Home. Gilead I have loaned out to someone right now, but this is my favorite in the trilogy. Marilynne Robinson is a wonderful author, and this book kind of gives you a modern retelling of the prodigal son story. It's again a story about a father and a son. It's a story that is very moving and I think very helpful and thought-provoking about faith and about relationships. I deeply enjoyed it, would recommend it. Another novel I'd recommend is Cormac McCarthy's The Road. This was a Pulitzer Prize winner a number of years ago. This story is actually an apocalyptic story. It's set in kind of an apocalyptic landscape, and it's about a father and a son who are just on this road, on a journey, trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic landscape. I don't know anyone who writes the way Cormac McCarthy writes. It's very unusual, even his use of punctuation or lack of punctuation in his writing. But it's a very moving story, and I think it's really well done. I recommend it. The one book I will recommend that maybe veers a little more into popular fiction and even to some degree science fiction is a book called Oxygen by John Olson and Randall Ingermanson. As you can see, this is a well-loved book. This was brand new when I bought it, but I've read it and I've passed it around to family members and friends over the years. I can't think of a single novel that I've ever read that I felt more hooked, that I experienced more suspense, just could not wait to read the next chapter, stayed up many late hours as I was working through that novel on a vacation years ago, and I just loved it. It was a great experience, and someday I'll reread it. So I think you'd enjoy it. One more that I'd recommend that I don't have the copy here with me, perhaps loaned out to someone, is Cry the Beloved Country by a man named Alan Patton. And once again, it's a father-son story. It takes place in pre-apartheid South Africa, and it's about a pastor who has gone down into South Africa looking for his son who has gotten in trouble with the law. And it's an amazing book, beautifully written. The land actually becomes almost a character in the story. It really gives you a feel for Africa. It also delves into issues of race and racism, and discusses the father-son relationship. And for some reason, I love books that are about that, and it's interesting that some of my favorite novels have that theme. I think you'll enjoy these and hope that you'll consider them for your summer reading.